Good morning, Vikings fans.
Hope the Vikings show up sooner than we did on Sunday. We do on Sunday than we did today. Go ahead.
This is Morning Joe's, the Tech Issues edition. I am your host, Joe Johnson, owner of PurplePTSD.com, VikingsTerritory.com, and Purple Territory Radio. Here with Mr. Joe Overly.
Hi, I'm just busy off of my annual course correction on my computer since I'm not a digital native and had to go in and grind out all kinds of crud on my computer because it was so slow that and nobody cares. So enough with that.
We all know the real reason is that you're nursing a super sweet hangover from all that Bob Dylan juice I delivered to your house for Christmas.
That's true. That's true. It's almost gone. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. This very well could be the last pre-game breakdown, upcoming game breakdown rather, of the season, and it's amazing how quickly that these seasons go. But the Vikings have a huge game on Sunday. It was flexed to 3:25 from noon. There's all sorts of implications surrounding that. And before we kind of get into the more nuts and bolts of everything, I wanted to get a general idea, Joe, on how you feel about the game. Like if you have if you're saving all your Bob Dylan juice for perhaps after the game, or if you're like a lot of people I've talked to, which are not even cautiously optimistic, but super optimistic, which seems to be the sense in the betting world as well.
Yeah, I'm always cautiously optimistic when it comes to the Vikings. I mean, I was out at TCO on Wednesday, and talking to some of the Vikings, talking to some of the other writers, and I asked a couple what they thought, and they said the Vikings should win this game if the quarterback doesn't puke on himself. So to put it like that, I thought, okay, well, that's good. He's playing well lately, and I think that's a big key to the game. There are a few others, but I think they have everything to play for, and it's kind of one of those things. If you get out early on them and show them that you smack them in the face, the Bears are a team that I can't remember who it was. I saw somebody on Twitter quoted as saying, one of the Bears members saying that we like to hit people, and a defense that likes to do that is going to intimidate you, going to get in your face and knock you back on your heels. And if the Vikings come out and do that right out of the gate, and really harass the quarterback and really hold up, get out to a touchdown right off the bat or something, you can put this team back on its heels because they have something to play for, the second seed, but they'll also resign themselves to, okay, let's save ourselves and get them to next week too. I mean, I don't know if that happens, but you saw the Lions quit last week. Now, granted, that's a different team and a different situation, but there's a little bit of that here too, where you battle, and then they said, okay, well, let's save it up, and get them next week in Chicago. So, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think they should win. I think they can win, but that's why they play the games, to find out if they will win.
Yeah, there's a couple different narratives there. There's people thinking that if I believe the Rams play at 3:25 as well.
Yes, they do.
So, if they're doing any scoreboard watching, will they rest their players to avoid injury? But then you have the other side of it, which would be, do the Bears really want to play the Vikings in back-to-back weeks? Which teams do they fear more than the others? I think, personally, just in regards to how I feel about the game, I'm terrified. I just have a really bad feeling about it, and it's such a stupid take. It's nothing I would ever write, which I say from time to time. But I just look at how the Eagles are playing, and I feel like there's no way that team doesn't make it into the postseason and make a run again. I certainly hope so, but I just have this weird feeling, like, I'm not saying that the refs or the NFL is pulling for the Eagles by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not one of those people, thank God. But just cosmically, I feel like we're going to see some more of Foles and the Eagles.
The whole idea of scoreboard watching is kind of specious in my opinion because it just never happens. I mean, unless you played on Sunday and you're watching the scoreboard on Monday, it just doesn't happen. I mean, hours before the game, you might have heard a score or something, but you're not. You're focusing on what you're about to do. And if you're in game, if you're looking at the score, you only do that when you're down 5 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and you say, "Well, God, I hope Philadelphia loses," and then you look up.
Yeah.
But you're not. I don't think you're doing it in the middle of the game. If you are, you are making a mistake. It's going to affect you negatively more than it will ever affect you positively. So, back in what year when the famous Paul Allen call in Arizona,
Yeah.
You saw that clip of all the Packers after their game was already over, watching that play on screen and seeing themselves get in the playoffs. That's a different situation. This is the Vikings are going to go out and play their game and try to win, and the Bears are too. Until I don't know. I just don't think that's a real thing. And if you ask anybody that's involved in it, they say it doesn't really happen.
Yeah, we had Chad Greenway on the show a few weeks ago, and he said he wanted to come back before the playoffs. So I'm assuming he'll be on again next week. We got to remember to ask him that question.
Right.
Because you would figure maybe if it's late in the game and maybe the Rams lose and the Bears are in a situation where they need to do an onside kick or go for 2 or push a little bit harder, maybe they will. But it's interesting you said that because one of the bigger storylines from this week, at least from a fan perspective, with people getting really pissed off on our Twitter and our Facebook, came from the press conference that Doug Peterson had, where one of the Philadelphia reporters asked him if he was thinking about calling Nagy, the head coach of the Bears. They have some time together working for the Chiefs and the Eagles, and saying, well, have you called him and told him not to rest his starters? And he laughed and goes, maybe I will, and maybe I already did this morning, and he let out a big laugh. Whether or not he's just saying that, I took it as genuine just based on his reaction to it, the laughter. But that found its way to Zimmer, I believe, after his Wednesday presser, or during his Wednesday presser. And he basically said, I don't care who calls who. We're still going to, prepare for the game one way or the other. But I kind of felt like, what more? I mean, they don't need any more motivation just based on context, obviously, as a team. But we all know that Zimmer loves being the underdog. He loves bulletin board material. And what more extra incentive do you need than hearing that the team that embarrassed you or exposed you last year and blocked your goal of making the Super Bowl is calling your division rival and trying to get in cahoots together? I could see the players really reacting positively to that.
Joe, I don't call me old school, but I don't think A, he called him. B, I think he's just like Donald Trump. He's playing the media for that, because some guy asked a question, so yeah, why not go with it? C, what would he have to say? He got his butt kicked by this Vikings team. That was last year, and you ask anybody involved in the teams, every year is different. So, granted, they might talk, they might be friends, but if Nagy is depending on whatever the weak sauce Eagles are doing this week or this year, or if he's relying on them for insight into this game, then he's already lost. So I don't think it happened. I don't think it's true. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that seems to be the narrative. A lot of people said, "Who cares?" I said, "I do." Damn it, I have such little to live for. Outside of that, I mean, we have so much to talk about in regards to the game. I thought we could start with, before getting to the Friday's 5 Furious Facts, just some injury updates. I'll go through these. There's a few that are big. I think it was already reported that Sherrills is not going to play. on Sunday. That is a relatively significant blow. As we discussed on Tuesday, he may be the most underrated or undervalued player that this Vikings team has. You look at a game like the Bears, a Bears game in a divisional game, and the importance of field position and flipping bad field position. We saw against, was it the Dolphins, where he kind of gave the Vikings a spark after the momentum had shifted away from them after that hot start. And
70-yard punt return. Yep.
Yeah, and after that, it was, they were back to playing like they did early in the first quarter. So, it sucks. I mean, him being out, like I said, is huge. He's such a reliable guy. He's really good at turning nothing into something. I think you saw the difference between him and Zylstra. Just in regards to the not going for a fair catch when he got rocked that time, making some bad decisions that a new guy's gonna do, and namely not just Sherrills is so shifty that he can pick up 10, 15, 20 yards like that, even when someone's barreling right down on him. So that's a really big key to the game, and it's really too bad. I know it's his foot. We feared it might be an Achilles. Have you heard specifically what the problem is?
No, and if it was his Achilles, he wouldn't even be on the list. He'd be talked about surgery. They'd reported it. He'd be done for the season. So no, he just hurt his foot, and they haven't really. They don't talk about injuries. He's on the injury report, so and they're probably holding out hope to get him next week for the playoff game. Knock on wood. So it's a significant blow, but I don't think it's the end of the world. Abdul will be fine. Zylstra will. He's got good hands. He'll catch the ball. He'll probably spend a lot of time this week working on it. He probably didn't prepare for it last week, so now he gets to spend some time making catches, getting his head together, getting an idea what Zimmer wants to do with the punt returns and such. And they will be fine if they get in a pinch. They have other people that they can make a play for him, like Adam Thielen used to return punts, and they got other players. So I'm not too worried about it, but yes, it is a significant loss that he can't play just because, he is a threat to do something great every time he gets the ball. So, yeah, it's a bummer. I didn't hear he was out, but yeah, it sure looks like he's going to be. I heard did not practice yesterday and Wednesday. And there's a couple others out there too, aren't there?
Yeah, BB was so I wrote down all that did not practice on Thursday. BB, CJ Ham with the elbow, which is another big piece, especially if they want to get this run game going. Kendricks with his hammy, and Xavier Rhodes.
I think Rhodes will play. Kendricks, I'd like to see him out there, but I don't think Wilson did a nice job in place of him last week, so I'm not majorly concerned there. I'd like to get him back, but I'd rather have him healthy for the playoffs once again. Rhodes, I think, will play. He always does, and I was just watching something. Sports Illustrated followed him around for a day recently before the Lions game, and so he's all over the blogosphere right now with some stuff. They had the big article in Sports Illustrated on the Vikings, so I think Rhodes is gonna get out there. It's like Zimmer says every week. There's always something, and I think he's just been nagged by an ankle and a groin. I think all year. Or maybe it's a shoulder. I can't remember, but
it was the ankle for sure, and now it's the groin.
So he'll be out there. He'll play.
They say that. There's these videos online you can watch of people getting their backs cracked by chiropractors, and people watch them for. I don't know. They find the sounds satisfying for whatever reason.
You come over and do mine, Joe. With your Periscope, you can do a Periscope of me getting mine cracked. Go ahead.
Of you getting murdered.
Yeah.
And they say, if you're like, your lower back's all messed up, I bet one of your feet or one of your legs is a little bit longer than the other. When you have an injury like an ankle, you end up compensating on one side, and maybe that has led to the groin. That, or he just feigns injury whenever he gets burned, one or the other. I was looking at the different keys to the game, and Vikings.com had a few different Eric Wilson versus player X, Y, or Z. Not that those writers have any more insight than we do, really. I mean, I'm sure they have a little bit more, but it seems like it's kind of a foregone conclusion that Kendricks isn't going to make it. The good news is, though, yeah, Wilson had a big game last week, and he seems to seemingly fit in when needed. So that's important. Let's hop into the 5 Furious Facts. There's some doozies.
I can do that. All right. First one's kind of a lengthy one, so bear with me. The Bears' offense is 21st in overall yardage, 344.7 yards per game, 20th in passing yards at 226, and 14th in rushing yards at nearly 118 yards per game. Bears quarterback Mitchell Trubisky, who was 405 rushing yards, is just 15 behind Cohen on the season. That's amazing to think about. He's the biggest threat to the Vikings defense in terms of rushing since Trubisky gassed him for 43 yards last time out. And the timing and the situation in which those runs by Trubisky occurred certainly hurt the Vikings. They got to pay particular attention. I'm hoping that Wilson is ready for that, if he's going to be out there, in spine. Because that to me is the biggest key of the game. I'd like to go and say the second one because I think it's related. For me last week, and I didn't think there was enough people talked about it, or I should say last time they played the Bears, was Tariq Cohen. He had 10 touches for 50 yards, but, and I felt he was more of a problem for him than Jordan Howard's 63 rushing yards. Cohen just seemed that he was like Cheryl's that, every time a defender came up on him, he had one quick move and he was past that first guy. They got a swarm to get that guy down, it seems.
Yeah.
And I think he's a threat. He's the X factor for him. Trubisky's not going to kill you with his arm, but he's going to do enough to keep you in the game. And he's going to run, which you have to be mindful of, because he is quick and he is fast. But you got to keep your eye on Cohen too, because that kid is shifty.
There's a few things here that I want to talk about. In your game preview, you talk about Trubisky being I believe a first look quarterback.
Right. First read
quarterback. That's what it was. Sorry. Basically, if his one option isn't there, he's going to pull the ball down, either run it or get out of the pocket and try to open things up a little bit.
Correct.
So that's super important. There's this narrative that I don't think has been talked about enough when it comes to the Bears, and I felt like these stats were wrong when I found them this morning, and so I double-checked them. Trubisky has 24 passing TDs on the season. Only 5 of those have come on the road. Of his 3,060 yards, only 1,088 of those have come on the road. So a third of his passing yards are on the road, and what is that, a fifth? 20% of his passing touchdowns have come on the road, which is clearly huge.
That's got to make stick, Joe.
What was that?
That's got to make you optimistic, doesn't it? Because he's on the road.
It actually did. And then the final thing I wanted to put in there is Jordan Howard is a 4-game streak of having 70 yards from scrimmage total, 63 yards rushing, and a rushing touchdown, and he catches a decent amount of balls out of the backfield as well, which is a different wrinkle. But yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, that was encouraging. One of my 3 keys to the game, which we'll get in later, is basically something that you said too, which is containing Trubisky and forcing him to beat you with his arm. If they can do that, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do, obviously, that bodes very, very well for them. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's definitely a key. Although he has been improving, he's not terrible as a quarterback. He, like I said, if you get to him and he sees his first read is not there, he's not going to. He might look to get out. So that's part of what they got to do. But he can still throw the ball downfield, and he's got some decent receivers once he does. I looked back at the last time the Vikings played him a bit, and for some of this stuff. And the last time they played him, Cousins was 30 of 46 for 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks, and a 75.6 rating. Last week he was 21 of 28 for 253, three TDs and no picks for 137 rating. So I think it helps him to have a running game. Clearly, I mean that's probably a vast understatement, but the last time against the Bears, they had the next furious fact is they rushed 14 times for 22 yards, which is like I said, compare that to what Trubisky rushed. He had 43 yards in that game. As we all know. And I don't know if did you see that Sports Illustrated article that came out this week?
I didn't. I was going to ask you about that.
Greg Bishop from SI followed the Vikings almost from the get-go this season and just spent a lot of time in behind the scenes talking to Spielman, talking to Zimmer, following players around, just getting all kinds of access that the rest of us ink-stained Gretches rarely get. And he kind of the last week he was with the team was after the Seahawks game. It's a very good article. It's really worth seeing it, catching if you can. But what was I going to say there? The thing that came away from me in that article that surprised me was that the rift between Zimmer and DiFilippo started like about 3 weeks in. Started after the Buffalo game when they ran the ball so I can't even remember what the stats were, but they hardly ran that game and
I think Cousins had like 60 attempts.
I was going to say, yes. It was one of his huge games where he was throwing the ball over the field. So, that is telling. I mean, it says to me from the start that those two weren't on the same page. And he was already saying, I want to, to him, I want to see more running. Well, the fact that he held off before he went to the media until, like a couple weeks before he let him go makes me feel a little bit more better about Zimmer because he's not, so snap judgment and this guy's not doing one goodbye. He gave him all season to run the damn ball and he didn't. So now Zimmer in the past 2 games has run the ball and they've come away with 2 wins. So for me it was pretty eye opening. So it's well worth the read. Anyway,
definitely though. I mean that game was historically bad in regards to output. I think that was the game that they said they haven't had a game in the NFL with that few rushing yards on more than 10 attempts since like the early 90s or something. And yeah, I think I've had a lot of debates with fans about the DiFilippo thing. I actually had one last night where the guy basically said, well, Zimmer always wanted Stefanski, so he ran DiFilippo out of town. I don't think that's a fair judgment. I don't know why if it was a Norv Turner thing where Turner, was square pegging a round hole because the Air Coryell system basically was predicated on a power rusher, a big tight end, and a burner down the field for a wide receiver. And the Vikings didn't necessarily have that, but that's all he knew how to do, and he didn't really know how to fix that, so he left. If DiFilippo just didn't know how to fix things. But it's really surprising because, I mean, going into the season on the Purple Journal podcast, I remember Luke saying that, it doesn't matter how bad the line is because the offensive line, all offensive lines are either good or mediocre, and when you have a guy like DiFilippo, he can scheme around the negatives and he can, do misdirection plays or dump the ball off or have a safety valve or something like that. It just didn't seem, not only did they not have a safety valve, they were going for these, Cousins was spending all this time with 7-step drops and adding half a second to his time holding onto the ball, so of course he's going to fumble the ball. The line was bad, and I'm not defending him, but he has bad pocket presence. You should know that, and your solution isn't quick passes, it's to add half a second and for plays to develop. The guy's hype was out of control versus a limited amount of experience calling plays, and I think that ended up rearing its head because people were so obsessed with these young offensive coordinators that everyone wanted that to work. When it comes to running the ball though, I think that is the main difference. I mean, when you look at the Bears, they're essentially the same team, all things considered. as they were back in November 18th, when the Vikings faced them the first time. And I feel like this Vikings team is completely different. The defense was on the upswing at that point after starting kind of rough. They did a pretty decent job of containing the Bears. But, but, I feel like the offense is a different animal. Maybe not as explosive, but the run game is effective. The line is playing a lot better. Cousins is limiting his mistakes for the most part. I mean, he did give up pick six the week before last, so I can't really say that. But there's room to be optimistic, especially considering how close that game ended up being and how they were seemingly a fumble. Didn't Delvin Cook fumble in the red zone in that game?
Yeah. I think they had a couple bad turnovers, and they had a pick six that really sealed it. I was kind of looking back, and I go, man, the final was only 24-20, I think, or 25-20.
25-20, yeah.
25-20, but then I remembered back. I went and kind of looked at those last two touchdowns were in garbage time. They were playing prevent, and because they had, after the pick six, it was 22-6. And it was then the fourth quarter. So. I'll give them credit. They got it close, but it doesn't really. The Vikings were way outplayed, and it was because of those three turnovers. So, so I was heartened by that, but by the same token, it's going to be a different game out here on Sunday, and it depends on the Vikings. It depends on this defense that is charging, that is has been playing great since about the third or fourth week of the season, and just getting better. I was surprised to see that they are the third best defense in terms of yards, right ahead of the Bears. They're both
on the season.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
They clawed their way back in there. Now the Bears are better on points per game overall. They're a couple points better. Go and look at that exactly. But I was really surprised that the Vikings have just clawed their way back. They have been. They have played lights out. I mean, you go back and look at the game. There's a pick six. That's not on them. That you can't even call that play that touchdown. The Dolphins started the second half with, because Zimmer's taking that one. He had the wrong defense called. I mean, that's not their play. That's not their execution per se. So, and before that, I mean, in the Lions game, they're just lights out. It's amazing. So, I'm very heartened by that. I do think that Vikings rushing the ball and sticking to the run will be a key to the victory in that. And as we've already talked about, the last one was the turnovers. The Vikings turned it over 3 times last Bears game, and one was a pick six that sealed the loss. If they protect the ball, you protect the season, and you advance to the postseason. I mean, that's such, and that's a no bleep Sherlock, thing, but it is. They have to do that. And it's been something that has been a struggle for the Vikings team. Now they're facing a team that has 36 turnovers this year. It's incredible.
Wow.
They have 27 interceptions and 9 fumble recoveries. So they are.
It's about over two a game. Yikes.
Yeah, that it also means that they're a team that likes to press a little bit and likes to jump routes. Zimmer was talking about that on Wednesday, and so if you can if the line can give him time and Kurt can be patient and find the right read and find the guy to get the ball to, and not throw into double coverage because you're just about to take a sack. They're going to be fine, and they'll beat this. I really feel that way.
Was the Bears pick six? Was that the squatting one where Cousins said he just didn't see that squatting DB? I believe it was. That's something that you haven't seen a lot of this season from him. The Dolphins one was a jumped route that concerns me a little bit, especially with Prince Amukamara being back there. One of my keys to the game was getting Thielen back into the swing of things. I think Amukamara was basically shadowing Diggs the first game, and Diggs had like 126 yards and a touchdown. So, and like you said, a lot of that was garbage time stuff, but he wasn't completely effective against Diggs in that game. So I wonder how they'll scheme against these wide receivers, how they'll react.
Joe, I mean, you brought up the injury report. I don't always spend a lot of time looking at the other side, but Eddie Jackson, defensive back for the Bears, has an ankle and has not practiced yet this week. So there's a lot of talk about him not playing, and that would help. There's also have a safety, DeAndre Houston Carson, who did not practice on Thursday, but that sounds like that's an illness. So. Okay. But anyway, they could be hurting a little bit back there, which is, reason for optimism. But
what do you attribute the Thielen's the drop off in Thielen's season to? Is earlier in the year when he was just having these ungodly numbers, he broke some Vikings records. He broke an NFL record for 100-yard games. At the time, we kept basically saying, these defenses are scheming to take Diggs out because they fear him as more of an explosive deep threat sort of guy. But that has to change at some point because, God, Thielen's just unstoppable. And it seems like that's been the case, and maybe that's benefited Diggs. He's having his best year in regards to receptions and yards. I think he has 8 touchdowns on the season, which ties his most in his career. I would.
I'd certainly double coverage on Thielen. That has changed things. You put up 8 consecutive 100-yard games in a row. You're going to get some attention, and it started in the first Detroit game, and when the streak stopped. But you got a quarterback that's smart enough not to throw constantly into double coverage, even though that's his favorite receiver, And so I think we've seen since that time, it's lightened up on Diggs a little bit more. And, Diggs is a little bit quicker than Adams, so maybe he's able to get open and flash quicker and get that opportunity. But his production has come up as Thielen's has gone down. Thielen was 5 for 80 last week, which was his first decent game. He's only had 100-yard game since those 8 straight. So it's not like he's been silent, but he has not been like he was, in the beginning of the season. That's what teams do. They watch tape, they adjust, they make changes. And Thielen has also been nicked up a little bit. He's had the ankle that he got injured with, so that might have slowed him down a little bit. But I don't think I think when if they make it to the playoffs, push comes to shove, you're going to have to see defenses are going to have to decide, because then they got Dalvin Cook, who's also a threat to catch the ball out of the backfield, and suddenly Kyle Rudolph is a threat again in this new offensive iteration for the Vikings. So, I don't see it any more than that. They've really ramped up the coverage on Thielen, and Cousins knows it. He's a decent quarterback. He's gonna find the open guy.
Yeah, I think one of the most heartening things in regard to changes that Stefanski has made versus DeFilippo is earlier in the season, you had Treadwell, who I believe was the intended receiver on that pick 6. Not that was his fault, but there were a few where I remember us saying, well, he could have maybe put some more effort into it, knocked the ball down, or he tackled the guy. Yeah, I remember you saying.
Yeah, I was mad. I was mad that he just kind of waltzed out of bounds, and or waltzed the rest of his route. You go, God, come on, do something, dude. But
yeah,
when I looked back on that, I was being a little harsh, I found. So.
Well, I mean, yeah, I remember he had the tip ball interception early in the season, and he had a lot of drops, and he kept getting opportunities. And I remember the media asking Cousins, why do you keep throwing to him when he's a 50-50 guy, not literally, but damn near close, especially at the beginning of the season. And he said, well, it's not my job. Personnel's not my job. If I see a guy's open, I'm going to throw to him. That's, the coaches, that's their job. I didn't realize till recently that Treadwell was inactive last week.
No.
So
you didn't?
No.
We chatted about that big time on the chat. I was all over that.
I must have missed that, and I thought that he just wasn't getting any snaps. But yeah, he's
healthy scratch. Yeah, they put in Beebe, and then they said this week it was due to personnel. They thought the matchups were better with Beebe, and now that Beebe's on the injury list again, that you'll probably see Treadwell back there. But you made a good point about what Cousins said. He kind of reiterated it on Wednesday when he was asked about the same question you just asked about Thielen. What's the deal going on there? And he says, I throw to who's open. I don't sit there and have in my mind that we've got to get this guy on the board. We've got to get this guy on the board so everybody's happy. I don't think that way. And the only people that do, I think, are he didn't say this, but implying that the only ones that do are fans. He's going to look and find the goddamn guy that's open and try to win the game. Thank God. That's what you want. That's what you want your quarterback.
Well, these plays happen so fast that for him to have to put an extra step in there and say, well, I'm not going to throw to him. I mean, it's a split-second thing, plus you have to basically, anticipate. What?
Doesn't he see a flash of purple that's open? He said, boom, I'm going there.
Pretty much. And he's, trying to figure out the anticipation, throwing, to where the player will be, not where they are, obviously. So, yeah, putting that extra step in there is ludicrous. But, yeah, Rudolph obviously had one of the better games of his career. Even removing the Hail Mary from it, he was a huge factor in the game. And we've talked about some of the changes he's made in regards to staying healthy and not kind of being a Gronk where you're fighting for all these extra yards, in lieu of your health. And so we said this, I believe, on Tuesday. Adding that, you said it and I thought it, so I'll take credit for it. That having that wrinkle added this late in the season, especially, I'll join you on that's drywall, but it's close enough. If they do make the playoffs, is huge, and is something that I don't think can be overstated. I mean, he's so talented in the red zone. And he's just so damn big. I mean, that Hail Mary was a perfect example. He was a good foot and a half over everybody else. Granted, they didn't jump, but
you got a healthier David Morgan. He's back in there, takes a lot of the blocking duties, so maybe that frees up a little bit more of Rudy to get downfield and catch some passes. I mean, the guy's a huge target, and he certainly was against the smaller DBs last week. It's a nice weapon to have on paper. It's a nice weapon to make them have to game plan against. It's something that had been gone for most of the season. So it's like getting someone back from injury or something. It's all good. And then you got Dalvin Cook, who's we'll quote you one more time, and the last time ever, still pent up. He wants to score touchdowns. So I'm excited for the offense. His defense is just hellish that they're going against. But I mean, they if you get up early and smack them in the face just the way they're going to try to do to you and say, okay, we're not taking it this time, you change their mentality a little bit, and then all of a sudden the fans are all over them, and all of a sudden it's not as easy to be as dominant as it is on your home field. And I'll say the opposite next week if the Vikings are playing there. But it's for right now, that place is just going to be rocking, and you just got to the fans can help intimidate the heck out of the Bears defense. I mean, they're going to try to smash them right out of the gate because that's the whole idea. A team sets a tone, and then you have to start thinking about other things. It's not a numbers thing; it's a mental thing, but it's a real thing in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you look at the first time they met this season, and the score was 14-0 at halftime. The Vikings need to come out and put some points on the board. You're right. Yeah, they need to get the crowd on their side. I can't imagine the people won't be really super fired up, but it's so important for them to come out and have success.
Drink, Joe.
What?
They got 3 extra hours to drink. Get ready for
that is true.
And just to lubricate their throat. That's all. I don't mean anything.
So how do you looking at this defense, the Bears defense? You mentioned David Morgan being back. Was he out last time? I feel like he was.
He was out of the game. Yeah, I believe so. I'd have to go back and look, but I don't know off the top of my head. But anyway, what's your point if he was?
Oh, just him being able to maybe help against Khalil Mack or what's.
That's a good point. Yeah, he wasn't on. He didn't get any targets anyway, so I can see that he wasn't there. But I don't know that he was. I suspect because he was out for a long time, and that was week 11, and he's been back 2 weeks.
Yeah, something like
so
that.
So I would have to agree that he was not playing in that game.
Granted he was out for a long time, so I'm not necessarily saying this was another knock against DiFilippo, but one of the things coming into the season, I remember asking Rudolph in person was, do you anticipate having more two tight end sets in the passing game? And he goes, well, shit, I want to have 3. I watched what the Eagles did in the playoffs, and it makes me very excited for what DiFilippo brings. And that never manifested into anything. Granted, maybe the personnel wasn't right. Morgan it reminds me of like a Klein saucer in that he's just 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Is super physical. Right. He barrels down the field. God, his name's escaping me now. The other tight end who had the drop a couple weeks ago, but has had a couple big catches.
Conklin.
Yeah. Maybe getting him more involved, but you got to do something against Khalil Mack. Obviously, Hicks is big. There's the other guy, Leonard Floyd on the other side is underrated too. I think the stat I'm not 100% sure. But I think Brian O'Neill hadn't allowed a sack all season through last week. I don't know if he did or not. I don't remember him giving up one, but hopefully he can keep working. The line is playing better because they've had time to gel. They've been healthy as a unit for the most part recently, which has been something that they've struggled with, obviously, for years.
To your point, Morgan was out. He was not playing last
Okay. So I'll blame it on that. Yeah, because if I remember correctly, what's his face had a huge first half. Khalil Mack.
Oh yeah, he did.
He shut the offense down. I think he recovered that fumble too, Dalvin Cook's fumble. So
and he was coming back from injury too. I think that game. I think that was. No, Khalil Mack. I think it was his first game back, so he was pretty fired up. But
that's why it would be nice to maybe have C.J. Ham. I don't know what his situation is. I know obviously he didn't practice yesterday, but having him in there to chip, he seems to put on 10 pounds every week. The dude is a monster.
Yeah, he's an elbow injury, and I don't know. I can't speak to how bad that is, but I would think you can get in there and block, couldn't you? You
would hope so. Granted, you always got to use your arms, obviously, but
I get
it could
that,
be painful. But yeah, for the most part.
Come on.
Yeah, where's the cortisone? The cortisone guy. One thing I thought was interesting too about the Bears offense was, and this seemed wrong too initially, I think they had 10 players catch a ball last week, and they had 7 different players rush the ball last week against the 49ers. And one of the big knocks or flaws people see in Zimmer's system is misdirection plays. And when I think of receivers getting the ball in the run game, I think of a lot of misdirection, end arounds, double end around type things. So that's going to be something they got to keep an eye on, I suppose. But they don't really have on this offense like a number one receiver. I think there was a quote in an article that was really good, but then I hit the paywall about Nagy talking about the receiving unit and how it's kind of I think he was trying to say it's a pick your poison thing. He's like, not having a number one guy is great because we can throw to whoever we want each week and no one knows who to cover type situation. I think that's just a nice way of saying these guys are all decent but not, great. But, this Vikings...
Yeah, they're just as good at stealing and digs. Yeah, whatever.
Who said that?
I did. But
yeah.
Saying it sarcastically. I mean, he's saying... that's what the Vikings say. We've been saying it earlier in the year. Pick your things are stealing. Digs are stealing, and they're. He's saying the same thing, but they're not quite as polished as those two guys now. We almost have to, in a little way, and it just occurred to me, we almost have to think that Diggs and Thielen's numbers were a little bit inflated earlier in the year since what's his name, Cousins threw the ball 532 times a game. But
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, they were still making the catches, and they were still. The other thing too, Rudy didn't have a drop last week. He caught all 9 of his targets. That's pretty nice.
Wow.
Good for him. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about the volume thing in regards to Cousins, but there's also the aspect of I do think that he has reined in some of his, speaking of adding an additional level to the thought process, some of the, you look at, you talked about throwing into double coverage. There was a few of those plays earlier in the season that were just miraculous. The touchdown, I think it's the Packers that Thielen had where he was falling over backwards. It was just like as close to the DB's hands as it could possibly be. Like if you did that play 100 times, 99 of them, it wouldn't work.
Well, and going on what Cousins said after he saw the play on tape, he said, "Oh God, maybe I shouldn't have thrown that." I don't know that they threw that 99 times.
Yeah, I wonder. There's a balance between losing those explosive plays and limiting the catastrophic mistakes. And I think it's working for them, but it'd be nice. Just we're kind of hammering that point home, but.
I'd sure like to get, after the season's over, I'd sure like to get some kind of explanation, definitive. I know we never will, but if in fact the Vikings go ahead and win this game and make the playoffs, that and even start to wreak some havoc in the playoffs because they got a monster defense and a very good offense again. What the heck is the deal? Is it just simply that he wouldn't, DeFilippo doesn't want to run the ball, Kevin Stefanski runs the ball? I mean, why is, what's his name? Kyle Rudolph came out yesterday and said, yeah, Stefanski's really, balanced the offense, and I'm just, I just have a hard time with this. What was the sticking point then? I mean, how can you not get your offensive coordinator to do what you want? How can you not get him to see the value of running the damn football? How can you not, now granted he didn't, for most of his tenure here, he didn't have Cook because Cook was out 5 games, but, or I should say about half of his tenure, but, I don't know. It's like they don't sound like they're any more, knowledgeable about this than we are, for crying out loud.
I'm glad you brought that up again because, like I said, I've had these discussions. In DeFilippo's defense, there were games earlier in the year, the Rams game, even the Buffalo game, when they were 17-0 in the blink of an eye, where running the ball just wasn't. Something they could do.
Right.
I feel like the line has also been a lot better. I mean, you look at, granted, we've said this a lot, the Dolphins aren't a great team, but you could drive a smart car through some of those holes they were opening up, and they just weren't there earlier in the season. I know there was a lot of stats that we covered about, the Vikings running backs getting hit in the backfield, 2-3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And so, in a way, I feel like, it wasn't realistic for them to run the ball in some of these games, and they needed to catch up, or they needed to keep up.
You give Filippo a pass then?
No.
That he was falsely let go because the line play is better, and he would have run the ball against the Dolphins. And
because even when the line play was getting better, or had been better, he would start the game out running, and then he would be so quick to abandon it that you almost felt like it was disingenuous in the first place.
Yeah.
That he was just doing it to say that he did it. And there's also the aspect of it that the more you run the ball, the better the line starts to play. You start to wear down the defense a little bit. There's some of that to it as well. And you've covered the NFL a lot longer than I have. I just don't remember hearing. I mean, a lot of people have talked about how devastating this is for DeFilippo's job opportunities, not as a head coach, because that's out the window for now, but as a coordinator. I mean, who wants to? You got a guy like Zimmer who's very widely respected around the league. Maybe, the number one thing that they tell you about a job interview is not to talk shit about your previous employer, And for him, he's going to have to go in there and defend his insubordination, basically. And in doing that, he can maybe say Zimmer doesn't know how the offense works, or the personnel wasn't right, or he's going to have a reason. But for a coach to tell you multiple times to run the damn ball, even if it doesn't work, just do it, because you have to do what
You make a good point. I think he's going to have to finesse the answer to that question quite a bit. He will also get to point to the fact that Mike Zimmer's had 4 offensive coordinators in 5 seasons as a Vikings coach. So I mean, there's that. I mean, there's ways to spin it, but as far as if you call it borderline insubordination, he's got to be able to finesse that as well. But I think he's going to get a head coach.
Is it 4 or is it 3?
It's
North Shermer, and DeFlippo, right? Or am I missing somebody?
Stefanski.
Oh yeah, duh.
So
is this now?
Pardon me?
I said, is this now that video of that kid on after he left the dentist and he's all high on gas saying, is this now?
Oh, yeah.
I completely forgot about him. Before we get into predictions, too, we both had keys to the game. Yours was in your pregame preview, which I will post a link to that in the article for today's show because it's a great one, and again, hopefully not the last. But people should definitely be reading those. God, I want them to win so bad. I can't even tell you. I think we talked a lot about the 4 keys that you had in the game were to contain Trubisky, to contain Cohen, which you've talked about, run the damn ball, and have Cousins take care of the ball. It's not dissimilar from my 3. Where did I put mine?
Well, it should be. It's pretty. It's Well, I wanted to say earlier, the one thing that scares me is number 3, because this is a really good defense you're going against. And if the Vikings, in order to win, need to run the ball and stick to it and establish it and stick to it, they've got to have some success with it, or else they could get ground. The good side of this, I don't know that if the defense is healthy and plays smart, that the Trubisky's going to be able to run wild like he did, or else have a whole lot of success. So the Vikings will stay in the game. But points are going to come. If the Vikings are going to try to grind it out, and the Bears defense know they are, they're gonna be all over Dalvin Cook. So I'm hoping to see some play action, some sprint outs. I'm hoping to see
get Cousins out of the pocket, like you kind of just said.
Short, sweet. You don't have to go downfield. Just dump off to Kyle, dump off to your back out of the backfield. Do some play action and get some stuff across the middle to your wide receivers, and you're going to see. I think you're going to see your old buddy Laquan Treadwell back in there. Please hang all.
I know.
LT.
It's the first thought that popped in my mind. We earlier in the season there was a lot of talk about perhaps both Zimmer and DeFlippo just overthinking it, having too many different variables based on what they were seeing on the field. Each player having to think about, well, if this happens, then I do this, then this, and this. They cut down the volume of that, or at least the complexity on defense. It's clearly worked wonders because this defense is player for player at least tied for the most talented in the league. And the offense, isn't dissimilar. They have so many playmakers that you think just keep, like you said, underneath stuff, safe stuff to start the game, open up, doing play action, all of that. I mean, I have a feeling that, Dalvin Cook could have a huge run in this game because, we keep talking about how pent up he is. His... the last one, tell me about it. Been single for 4 years. Cousins taking care of the ball. I'll add a different one since I have run the ball, make Trubisky beat you, and to start out strong. They had 0 points in the first half last time. And then we'll get into predictions. But special teams is a big one too that we haven't really talked about. Before the Vikings played the Bears last time, they had that I think it was 22-14. Then they had that field goal. I think because the Vikings defense had some bad penalties, which they also did last week, which could kill them in this game. You can't give,
Right.
second and third and 18, 19, and they were giving up these first downs. You can't have that. But there was, Parkey, the kicker for the Bears. There was like 4 helicopters watching him practice, and the league blocked the footage to discourage that sort of thing. But he was really struggling, and of course, the get right for any team is to play the Vikings because people's luck just seems to change. And Bailey's had his share of struggles. A lot of those were based on not really his fault, but the holder. Weil has apparently never learned how to hold, and according to the guy I've been arguing with for 6 weeks, that's something you can never know. You sign a punter or you draft them, and it's a crapshoot because you don't have the ability to ask questions or watch tape. God, that argument drives me crazy. But that could, in a game like this, what?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm a little adult ADD, and whenever I hear that name Parkey, I think of this Monty Python sketch when these two guys are sitting in a business office across the table. All of a sudden, someone above them jumps out of the window and kills himself, and they go, "Who was that?" And they say, "Oh, that was so-and-so." Oh, man. And then they start talking about who's going to be next, and one of them's named Parker, and so they start saying, "Come on, Parkey! Come on, Parkey!" Sorry, Joe. I do your role.
There's always time for Monty Python, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, this game could very well come down to a field goal, and it's indoors, which is good. Bailey's been turning it on. If Prefer wants to keep his job, they damn well better make a game-winning field goal. I was listening to an interview with Kyle Rudolph. That was since everyone's on vacation on the radio, it was on the Half-Ass Morning Show this morning, and they were talking to him about the curse of the 27-yard line for the Vikings, and with the Blair Walsh's missed kick and the fact that number 27 on the Vikings name is cursed. It was super interesting, but I really hope it doesn't come down to a field goal because I can't help it. I always feel better logically as I'm talking to you, but emotionally, I am so nervous. I don't know how I'm going to be able to watch that game. My mom said, "Should we have a big party and make a bunch of food?" I'm like, "You think I could eat? Are you kidding me?"
It's to quote the Rolling Stones, "I am your emotional rescue, Joe." Come on, man. The Dow Jones Industrials, they went up and down all the week, and now they're going to go back up again for the Vikings on Sunday. They're going to win. They're going to win. What's your prediction?
My prediction is, again, I'm going to split it logically and emotionally. Emotionally, I really think they're going to lose. I do. I just have this feeling that I'm a big person, and this is so stupid, on visualizing things, and I just can't. I'm having trouble seeing past Sunday in regards to covering the team. I mean, we added all these new writers on Purple PTSD. They've been churning out 3-4 new articles a day, and it's like, God, they'd be so perfect if they made a run. But there's a reason why the site's called Purple PTSD. But logically, everything we've said, I think that the Vikings could have won that game earlier in the season if not for some of those momentum, especially the Delvin Cook thing killed any momentum that they had in the first half for sure. So the defense is playing well. Cousins has, for the most part, been limiting his mistakes. I'm going to say it'll be a 31-28 Vikings.
Wow. It gives you a shot to get back.
I know. I cheated a little bit.
Oh, did you want to see where we were at and look at what I predicted? Okay. Well, I want to read this quote from Kirk Cousins that I had in my piece that he said on Wednesday when they were asking him about butterflies and nervousness for this game. He says, "There'll always be excitement, nerves, anxiety, butterflies, whatever you want to call it. There always will be there. That's because this matters to me. I joke with people that when my math teacher in junior high said, "Hey, we got a pop quiz," you start to feel the butterflies because you want to do well. It matters to you. Frankly, I think when I have butterflies, I play a little better because it heightens your awareness and your attention to detail and your sense of urgency. I've always felt, yeah, I have always felt that when I step on a field, regardless of the game, and those will be there again on Sunday, those butterflies, and that's okay. It's part of the deal. So when I heard that if he is indeed pumped for this and to get this team in the playoff, he is because he's had all this $84 million pressure on him all season long. I think he's going to get the job done. I mean, he does make last second comebacks. He is at home. He is he's got a good team around him, and he's got a defense that's going to shut down Mitchell Trubisky and really, confuse the heck out of him. I see a much more lowest scoring game, and I probably the lowest I've had point total I predicted all year.
I think so.
Yeah, I got Minnesota 20-16, and it may not be pretty, it may be a lot of defense, but I think the Vikings will get it done, and that place will be rocking on Sunday. It'll be fun to be there.
Yeah, I'm jealous you get to go. Really quickly, too, we have some over-unders. I apologize for not sending them before the show. I was also having trouble with my laptop. And if you're listening, I will post these on our social media. If you want to enter to win a gnome, you can choose which one you want the over or the under for. And just for fun, whether or not you think the Vikings are going to win.
We both got them last week, right? You got the under for Cousins interception, and I got the under for sacks. The Vikings did not get 7.5 sacks. So
yeah, at some point I'm going to get all some of the data that Luke had before he left for browner pastures, and I'm going to put together like a season for a show, like a recap on how badly you beat me, basically. Although I will say that the over-unders have been a lot more competitive. This week, I'm sticking with the one from last week just because of its importance. Cousins, 0.5 turnovers total. So that includes fumbles, but they have to be lost fumbles, obviously. Dalvin Cook, 49.5 yards rushing. Adam Thielen, 99.5 yards receiving.
Wow. So, go ahead, you go first.
Yeah, I'm sticking with my boy Kirk. I'm going to go with the under on turnovers.
It's antithetical to your prediction.
I know. You bring up the Dow Jones, I'm a lot more like cryptocurrency. I'm unregulated and all over the place.
I think this is I'm not sure that Adam gets that, so I'm not going to go there, and I hate betting against him, so I won't. I'm going to go the over on Dalvin Cook.
Oof.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to get 50 yards against these dudes, but I don't care. He's the guy to do it. Bust a couple medium-sized ones, and then grind out a few others, because I think they're going to stick to the run until they have to turn into DiFilippo and wing the ball, and I don't think that's going to happen this week. They're going to beat him, Joe. I think they're going to beat him. I don't like to come too overconfident because it always comes back to haunt me, but I'm very cautiously optimistic about this one, and I'm excited to see a team that goes in with some confidence and is not afraid of the big spot and say, okay, this is our house. Let's go out here and show this team how much better we are, that they had a freaking soft schedule and they are a decent team, but we're better than they are. So that's what I want to see on Sunday.
Yeah, especially, those road numbers for Trubisky are very encouraging. And I want us to both be right, because if that's the case, if we're both right and the Vikings lose, I just can't see that happening. If that means they've limited the mistakes, at least from Cousins, and they've been able to at least semi-successfully run the ball. The more yards they have on the ground, that can mean they're grinding out a win as well. So we'll see. But yeah, let us know on Twitter and Facebook what your over and unders are. We will. Do you have like 10 minutes for the Q&A?
Sure.
Since we had some technical issues, let's roll. Hop over onto Periscope here in about 5 minutes, so I can share the link. Every week during the season, we'll be doing Q&A stuff. We'll have to discuss what the schedule for Morning Joes will be in the off season. I'm sure we'll just go down to one show a week or maybe one show every 2 weeks, depending on what part of the off season it is.
We don't need to talk
But
about that
that's a good month out at least.
Yes, right.
What was the Super Bowl? February something? We'll talk about it in February. But thanks to everybody for listening, and I definitely want to recommend that people check out the live chat on Sunday. We had an amazing one last week. This one's going to be huge. It's going to be a big fun party. We did add a bunch of new writers to Purple PTSD. Some of those will be writing for Vikings territory.
Check them out for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of new content and a lot of different stuff that we haven't had. Like we have a new NFC North department covering, the division. We're going to have a lot of fantasy stuff. It's going to be really cool. I couldn't be more encouraged. So thanks to everybody for the support, and we will check you out on Periscope here in a few minutes. And if you're listening to the show afterwards, I will post a link to that video as well at the top of the article, because those will be getting a couple thousand views, which is amazing and terrifying. So we'll talk to you next week. Hope it's good news. This has been the Morning Joe's Skull.